My girlfriend once said, "I can walk away anytime. There are guys begging for me." She expected me to panic. Instead, I said calmly, "Great, there's the exit." That moment, what started as another one of Tessa's usual manipulation games, became the turning point where I finally learned my own worth. I'm Blake, 29, a mechanical engineer, living in Denver, with the woman I thought I'd marry. I met Tessa 2 years ago in a downtown coffee shop while she was photographing her latte for Instagram. Her confidence and creativity caught my attention immediately. She worked as a freelance social media manager, helping small local brands grow online, though her income fluctuated depending on sponsorships. After 8 months of dating, we moved into a nice downtown loft, one I could comfortably afford on my engineering salary. For a while, life felt perfect. But over time, Tessa developed a habit that would slowly poison our relationship. She started using breakup threats as her ultimate weapon whenever we disagreed. It didn't matter what the issue was. If I spent a Saturday working on my vintage Harley instead of attending her influencer friend's brunch, if I picked a casual diner over a trendy spot she wanted to photograph, or if I said no to overpriced concert tickets she wanted for content, every disagreement ended the same way. She'd cross her arms, tilt her head, give that practiced pout, and say her trademark line, "I can walk away anytime. Boys are begging for me." Then came the usual show. She'd scroll through her Instagram DMs, filled with fire emojis and over-the-top messages from random guys reacting to her bikini photos. "See this?" she'd say. "Hunter wants to take me to Aspen. Preston's offering me dinner at that new steakhouse. Kai says he'd treat me like a queen." The routine was always identical. She'd flaunt the attention, wait for me to panic, then graciously forgive me once I apologized, and promised to be better. For 2 years, it worked. Every time, I feel that same knot in my stomach, imagining her with one of those guys, and I'd fold. "You're right, babe. Let me cancel my plans." The truth was, I was covering nearly all our shared expenses, $2,800 in rent, $200 in utilities, and about $600 in groceries since she only bought organic. I even paid for her business upgrades whenever her MacBook broke or she wanted a new camera. She'd contribute occasionally, maybe $800 or $1,200 when sponsorships came through, but treated those moments like acts of generosity instead of her share of responsibilities. I didn't mind supporting her goals, but it started wearing me down when she used her financial dependence as leverage to control me. Every argument followed the same predictable cycle. She'd escalate, I'd back down, and she'd get her way, while I felt smaller each time. I was constantly walking on eggshells, trying to avoid triggering another "boys are begging for me" speech. But something inside me began to shift, a quiet resentment building each time she turned other men's attention into a weapon. What bothered me most wasn't even the threats, it was how casual they'd become. She'd drop "I can walk away" into conversations about what to watch on Netflix, or whether to order pizza or cook dinner. Every simple choice became a potential crisis, because she'd learned threats worked better than actual communication. "Blake, you never want to do anything fun anymore," she'd complain. "Maybe Preston would appreciate going to that art gallery opening." And she'd say it while I was literally planning a weekend trip she'd asked for. Just one where I suggested camping instead of staying at a resort. Somehow that made me the boring boyfriend who didn't deserve her. I started doubting myself. Was I too focused on work? Too careful with money? Too plain for someone living a social media-driven lifestyle? The subtle gaslighting worked. I started feeling lucky she stayed, rather than proud she chose me. Meanwhile, her Instagram painted a perfect fantasy. Date nights, vacations, gifts, all funded by me, captioned with quotes about knowing your worth and never settling. The irony wasn't lost on me. She built her brand around relationship empowerment while using emotional manipulation in ours. But I loved her, or thought I did, and convinced myself it was just her way of feeling secure. I had no idea how close I was to breaking until that one Saturday in my garage, the day I learned what really happens when you call someone's bluff instead of folding to it. It happened one Saturday morning, the day I finally reached my limit. I was in our building's garage working on my 1987 Harley Sportster, something I'd been meaning to rebuild for months. I'd cleared my entire weekend for it, ordered new gaskets, had the cylinders machined, even watched tutorials to make sure I didn't mess up the timing. This wasn't just maintenance, it was therapy. The kind of focused, methodical work that reminded me why I became an engineer in the first place. I'd been at it for about 3 hours, parts neatly organized across the workbench, when Tessa stormed in, wearing a designer outfit that probably cost more than my motorcycle. "Blake, what the hell? I've been texting you for an hour. We need to leave for Madison's rooftop photo shoot right now." I looked up from the cylinder head, genuinely confused. "Photo shoot? You never said anything about that. I told you yesterday when you were on your laptop. God, you never listen. This is a big opportunity. Madison's featuring local influencers for a skincare brand, and she has 50,000 followers. The lighting is perfect right now, and everyone's already there." She paced around, careful not to get grease on her white jeans, scrolling through Instagram stories of her friends posing with champagne glasses. I gestured to the half-disassembled engine. "Tess, I told you I'd be working on the bike this weekend. You can go without me." Her expression darkened, the same look I'd seen countless times before. "Are you serious? This is my career, Blake. These brand collaborations are how I grow. And having my boyfriend there shows stability. That matters for my image." "Your image will survive one photo shoot," I said, holding up a worn gasket. "If I don't replace this seal, the engine's going to leak oil all over the garage. This bike's been waiting months." That's when she crossed her arms and delivered the line that had controlled me for years. But this time, her tone was sharper. "Fine. You know what? I can walk away anytime, Blake. Boys are begging for me. Hunter's been asking me to gallery openings. Preston wants to take me to that new rooftop bar. Kai said he'd drop everything to make me happy." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through DMs as if to prove her point. "See this? You deserve someone who prioritizes you. Beautiful. Say the word and I'll pick you up in my Tesla right now." Normally, this is where I'd panic, imagine losing her, see her with one of those guys, and cave instantly. But not this time. Maybe it was the oil on my hands, the smell of metal and gasoline, or just the calm that comes from finally being done with the chaos. I felt grounded, clear. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Great, there's the exit." Then I pointed toward the garage door with my wrench and went back to work. The silence that followed was heavy. I could feel her staring at me, waiting for the usual apology. But I kept working, checking the service manual for the next torque sequence. "What did you just say?" Her voice had a sharp edge, disbelief creeping in. I repeated, steady and calm, "There's the exit. You keep saying you can walk away and that boys are begging for you. I'm not stopping you. You're really not going to fight for us? For what we have?" The desperation in her tone was new, unfamiliar. I set down my wrench and looked at her. "Tess, you've threatened to leave me at least 50 times in the last 2 years, over restaurants, weekend plans, even what show to watch. I'm done living under constant threats that you'll find someone better. If you want to go, go. If you want to stay, stop using other men to manipulate me. But I'm not negotiating for basic respect anymore. Her face cycled through shock, anger, panic, and calculation before settling on fury. Fine, I'll pack my bags right now. Don't come crawling back when you realize what you lost. She stormed out, her heels clicking across the concrete. A minute later, I heard her car door slam and the sound of tires screeching as she sped away. I stood there, waiting for the familiar wave of regret or fear, but it never came. Instead, I felt relief. For the first time in months, the garage was quiet. No shouting, no guilt trips, no tension. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant noise of traffic. I turned back to the bike and kept working. For 4 straight hours, I didn't think about Tessa once. Just focused on something real, something that didn't require apologies or emotional gymnastics. Instead of chasing after Tessa or sending the usual apologetic texts, I did something completely new for me. I muted her notifications and focused on myself. It didn't take long to notice the difference. Without the constant emotional chaos, my mind felt quiet, clear. I realized just how much mental energy I'd been wasting managing her moods. For the first time in years, I could actually concentrate on work. Even my supervisor, Dave, noticed. During our Monday project review, he looked over my report and said, "Blake, whatever you change this weekend, keep it up. This thermal analysis is your cleanest work all quarter." That evening, I sat down with my laptop and did something I'd avoided for months. A full budget breakdown. The numbers hit me like a cold splash of water. Our shared monthly expenses were around $4,200, $2,800 in rent, $200 in utilities, $600 for groceries, $300 for her business subscriptions and equipment, plus extras like her gym membership and all the premium streaming services she insisted we needed for content research. Tessa's average monthly contribution? Maybe $900, and that was on good months when she actually landed sponsorships. Without her, I'd save more than $800 every month. Money I could finally use for things that mattered to me. So I made a decision. I enrolled in an advanced metallurgy certification course I'd been putting off for over a year, one that could raise my salary by nearly $15,000 a year. The irony wasn't lost on me. Tessa's dramatic exit had freed up both the money and the mental space I needed to actually move forward. At lunch, I finally caught up with my old workshop buddy Ryan. He'd been asking me for months to join him on custom motorcycle builds. "Dude, where have you been?" he laughed. "I've got 3 clients waiting for full restorations, and I can't keep up. There's real money in this if we do it right." We sat down for 2 hours, sketching out ideas. Vintage bike restoration was booming in Denver, with wealthy collectors paying anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 for quality work. Ryan had the paint and fabrication setup. I had the mechanical expertise and attention to detail. It was the kind of work I loved, precise, challenging, creative. And I realized something important. While I'd been walking on eggshells with Tessa, I'd completely neglected my own potential. Meanwhile, Tessa clearly wasn't taking my silence well. Her Instagram turned into a passive-aggressive display, cryptic quotes about toxic people, photos of expensive dinners captioned "treated right for once," and selfies with teary eyes tagged "choosing myself." But I didn't engage. I didn't like her posts, didn't watch her stories, didn't even react. And for someone who thrived on attention, my absence probably hurt more than any argument ever could. By Thursday, her posts had become desperate. A photo of her crying with the caption, "Sometimes the people closest to you hurt you the most." Another selfie reading, "Choosing myself for once," with 3 crying emojis. Then came the fake grand gesture, a photo of flowers with a card that read, "From your secret admirer." I knew her handwriting instantly. Still, I didn't bite. When she stopped by the apartment to pick up clothes, she'd conveniently leave her phone unlocked on the counter, ensuring I saw the flood of DMs from guys like Hunter, Preston, and Kai, offering dates, dinners, and getaways. 2 months earlier, I would have spiraled with jealousy. Now, I just brewed coffee and went about my morning, completely unfazed. My daily life had transformed. Mornings started with workouts instead of scrolling through her posts. Evenings were productive, working through my metallurgy course, planning the motorcycle business, or finally finishing the books that had sat untouched for years. Without Tessa's constant emotional demands, I finally had energy for the things that actually built my future. By Friday, 1 week after our garage confrontation, I felt like a new person, calmer, more grounded, genuinely excited about what was ahead. It hit me that what I'd mistaken for love might have been addiction. The constant chaos, the highs and lows, the drama disguised as passion. But the person I was becoming without her, that was someone I actually liked. When my silence stretched into the second week, Tessa escalated from subtle manipulation to full-blown psychological warfare. Her Instagram turned into a highlight reel of luxury dates and expensive nights out, each post crafted to make me jealous. There were photos from fancy steakhouses with captions like, "Finally being treated like the queen I am," with a mystery man's hand across the table. Concert tickets tagged with, "When someone actually listens to your music taste," followed by heart emojis, and the most obvious attempt yet, a selfie inside what looked like a Tesla Model S with the caption, "Some men know how to make a woman feel special," geotagged in the city's most upscale shopping district. She was trying desperately to prove that leaving me was the best decision she'd ever made. But the effort was transparent and exhausting to watch. Her followers flooded the comments with fire emojis, but her real friends were noticeably silent. Meanwhile, I was doing the opposite of spiraling. Ryan and I had officially launched our motorcycle restoration business that Wednesday, starting with a 1962 Indian Scout owned by a collector in Cherry Hills. He was paying us $3,500 to rebuild the engine, restore the original paint scheme, and upgrade the electrical system while keeping everything authentic. It was the kind of work that reignited my passion for engineering. Detailed, demanding, and deeply satisfying. Mr. Davidson, the owner, looked over our plans and said, "Your attention to detail is impressive. Most shops rush these projects, but you clearly understand the craftsmanship." That single compliment did more for my confidence than 2 years of trying to prove myself in a toxic relationship ever had. Ryan and I quickly mapped out our next few projects, including a 1974 Norton Commando that could bring in over $4,000 in profit. The business was taking shape faster than I'd imagined. But as always, Tessa wasn't done trying to pull me back into her orbit. Thursday evening, she showed up at the apartment with a man beside her. "This is Preston," she said loudly, making sure the neighbors could hear. "I just need to grab a few more things." Preston was tall, well-dressed, and driving a BMW that he'd conveniently parked right in front of the building. It was a scene designed for attention, her way of proving she'd upgraded. They walked through the apartment, Tessa pointing out furniture and decorations like a tour guide. "This is where Blake spends all his time," she said when they reached the garage, her voice dripping with disdain. "Just tinkering with old junk instead of enjoying life." I didn't react. I kept working on the Indian Scout's carburetor, focused and calm. Preston, on the other hand, seemed genuinely interested. "Indian Scout, right? 1962? These are incredible machines," he said, leaning in. "What kind of work are you doing on it?" I explained the restoration process step by step while continuing to work. He asked thoughtful questions, clearly impressed by the craftsmanship. Tessa's expression shifted from smug to irritated. Her plan was crumbling. Preston was more interested in my work than in her performance. "Preston, we really need to go," she said sharply. "Our dinner reservation's in 30 minutes. But Preston wasn't done. He glanced at the bike again and said, "You know, my grandfather left me a '69 Triumph. I've been looking for someone who could restore it. Would you guys be interested in taking it on?" Ryan and I exchanged a quick glance. Another potential high-value client, courtesy of Tessa's attempt at revenge. "Absolutely," I said, handing him our business card. As they left, I overheard Tessa trying to dissuade him. "Don't waste your money on Blake's little hobby business," she muttered. But Preston was already saving our number in his phone. The irony was perfect. Her effort to humiliate me had just brought us more business. That weekend, her social media activity hit a fever pitch. Multiple posts per day with different men, new restaurants, designer shopping bags, and captions like "Living my best life" or "Upgrade complete." But this time, the engagement was fading. The same followers who once filled her comment section with praise were now quiet. The constant performative updates were wearing thin. Meanwhile, my life was steadily improving. The Indian Scout project was ahead of schedule. My metallurgy coursework was going well, and for the first time in years, my bank account was growing instead of shrinking. Without Tessa's financial drain and emotional drama, I could finally see a future I actually wanted, one built on stability, purpose, and self-respect. By the third week of silence, it was like Tessa no longer existed in my world. Not because I hated her, but because I had outgrown the version of myself who needed her. The business with Ryan took off faster than either of us expected. Word spread through local collector circles, and soon we had more projects lined up than we could handle. I spent my weekends in the garage, hands covered in grease, music blasting, completely absorbed in the kind of work that made me feel alive. The difference in my mental state was night and day. No walking on eggshells, no constant self-doubt, no analyzing every word I said for fear of triggering another argument. I was free, and in that freedom, I found clarity about her, about myself, and about what real peace felt like. Tessa's final attempt to re-enter my life came through a late-night text, almost a month after our last encounter. "Hey, I know things ended badly, but I really miss you. I've been thinking about us a lot. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a long time, not angry, not tempted, just detached. The person I'd once been would have jumped at the chance, eager to fix things. But the person I was now recognized that message for what it was, a test, and I'd already passed it. I typed out one final message. "Tessa, I hope you find what you're looking for, but I'm finally happy, and I want to keep it that way. Then I hit block. It wasn't an act of revenge. It wasn't even dramatic. It was peace. Simple, quiet, and complete. Weeks turned into months. My certification wrapped up successfully, and I got a promotion at work. Ryan and I expanded the restoration business into a proper workshop with real clients and a waiting list. The life I'd been too distracted to build before was now real, solid, self-sustained, and fulfilling. Sometimes, when I catch myself reflecting, I think about how Tessa used to say, "You'd be nothing without me." But in the end, she was the catalyst that made me realize the opposite was true. I didn't lose myself when she left. I found myself. And for the first time in years, that was enough.